Guess what just happened? In November 2024, Ottawa made a move that stunned Washington. Canada rejected the F-35 and selected Sweden's Gripen E as its next-generation fighter jet. Not because the F-35 lacked capability, not because of cost alone, but because of a word NATO allies almost never say directly to the Pentagon: sovereignty. Since when did allies begin choosing control over raw power? For more than 20 years, the F-35 was treated as the only real option for U.S. allies that wanted to preserve NATO interoperability. This $1.7 trillion program wasn't just selling fighter jets. It was selling an entire military ecosystem: combat software, maintenance networks, weapons integration, updates, and even authority over when aircraft are cleared to fly. Canada had been a founding partner in the F-35 program since 1997, contributing more than $600 million Canadian dollars to its development. But last month, Ottawa quietly stepped away, signing a $19 billion Canadian contract with Saab for 88 Gripen aircraft. This wasn't a simple supplier change. It was a geopolitical statement. Being an ally does not mean being dependent. So what pushed a G7 nation to risk pressure from Washington in order to reclaim control of its own airspace? On the surface, the F-35 is, a technological marvel. Stealth-integrated sensors, advanced network warfare capabilities. But, honestly, beneath the carbon fiber shell sits a control system many countries only fully understand when it's already too late. Every F-35 operates through ALIS, the Autonomic Logistics Information System, which is fully controlled by Lockheed Martin in Texas. Every flight log, every software patch, every maintenance decision flows through centralized United States servers. Canadian pilots may sit in the cockpit, but the people determining what the aircraft is allowed to do sit inside a data center thousands of kilometers away. The issue isn't the technology, it's ownership. When countries buy the F-35, they aren't buying aircraft, they're purchasing time-limited licenses to operate them. The Netherlands learned this in 2019 when it attempted to upgrade weapon systems for a national operation, and was blocked because approval hadn't come from the Pentagon. Poland faced a similar situation in 2022 when it requested integration of European missiles into its F-35 fleet, and had to wait 18 months for clearance. This isn't cooperation between equals, it's customers locked into long-term contracts with no easy exit. The Gripen E follows the opposite philosophy. Saab sells ownership, not usage rights. The Gripen software is built on an open architecture system, allowing operators to maintain, upgrade, and modify the aircraft without seeking permission from Stockholm. Brazil demonstrated this by integrating its own domestic weapons into its Gripen fleet in just 14 months. The Czech Republic is currently developing its own electronic warfare modules for the Gripen without handing over source code to any foreign contractor. Canada reviewed the data and saw the contrast clearly. The F-35's operating cost is estimated at $33,000 per flight hour, with most of that money flowing back to U.S. contractor systems. The Gripen E costs roughly $8,000 per flight hour, and most maintenance spending will remain domestic once Canada completes its final assembly facility in Montreal. This isn't merely about saving money. It's a shift from dependency to self-sufficiency. When Ottawa signed with Saab, it didn't just buy 88 aircraft. It secured the right to determine the future of its Air Force for the next 4 decades, without calling Washington every time it wants to change a line of code. Washington's response came quickly. Less than 48 hours after the announcement, a Pentagon spokesperson voiced deep disappointment, calling the decision contrary to alliance interoperability. U.S. defense analysts immediately raised concerns about the future of NORAD if Canada and the United States no longer flew the same fighter platform. But these arguments ignored a critical technical fact. The Gripen E is fully compatible with NATO's Link 16 tactical data system, the same network used by the F-35. In practical terms, the Gripen can communicate seamlessly with F-35s, F-16s, and Eurofighters. So what is Washington really concerned about? It's not interoperability, it's precedent. If Canada can exit the F-35 program while remaining fully aligned with NATO obligations, the door opens for Poland, the Czech Republic, and possibly even Germany to quietly reevaluate their own defense strategies, especially following U.S. political instability in 2024. Gripen isn't competing only on technology. It's challenging the entire defense relationship model. Where America offers a locked ecosystem, Sweden offers empowerment. That distinction is, increasingly attractive to small and mid-sized nations seeking to balance alliance commitments with strategic independence. Canada isn't acting in isolation. The Gripen decision coincided with new defense cooperation agreements between Ottawa and Brussels. In October, Canada announced deeper involvement in European defense initiatives, including the Franco-German next-generation tank program and Italy-led long-range air defense systems. This reflects a deliberate diversification strategy, moving away from total reliance on a single partner. Canada is building a defense network with multiple centers of power. Gripen is only the first step in a broader plan to reposition Canada from dependent ally to independent bridge between North America and Europe. And this strategy extends beyond weapons procurement. Ottawa has quietly negotiated deep technology transfer agreements with Saab, granting Canadian universities access to advanced avionics research and AESA radar systems. McGill University and the University of Toronto have signed cooperation deals with Sweden's Royal Institute of Technology to develop next-generation sensors. This isn't a transaction, it's an investment in national capability, turning defense spending into long-term economic growth rather than one-way payments to foreign contractors. At Cold Lake Air Force Base in Alberta, Major Emily Russo stood in front of a Gripen E mock-up for the first time in September. After 12 years flying CF-18 Hornets on Arctic patrols, the first thing that caught her attention wasn't the cockpit or the engine, it was the maintenance bay beneath the aircraft. "I can open this with standard tools," she told her team. No need for manufacturer-licensed engineers flown in. For a pilot who once waited 3 weeks to replace a sensor due to shortages of Boeing-certified personnel, the simplicity felt revolutionary. The Gripen was built for Arctic conditions from the beginning. Sweden shares similar latitudes with northern Canada, and the Swedish Air Force has tested Gripens in -40°C temperatures, operating from icy runways as short as 800 meters. Short takeoff capability allows Canada to disperse aircraft across the Arctic, rather than concentrating them at a few vulnerable bases. Inuvik, Iqaluit, Resolute Bay, communities that once lacked fighter infrastructure, can now serve as flexible deployment hubs. This fundamentally reshapes how Canada protects its sovereignty over a rapidly opening Arctic Ocean. In Montreal, the Gripen final assembly program has sparked renewed optimism in a struggling aerospace sector. Bombardier, which cut 5,000 jobs between 2020 and 2023, is now hiring 1,200 engineers and technicians for the Gripen project. Marc Tremblay, a 28-year-old engineering graduate from Polytechnique Montreal, shared that he had planned to leave aviation altogether. He said, "I thought Canadian aerospace was finished. Now I'm working on a next-generation fighter line at home." The significance isn't just employment, it's access. Unlike Canada's limited role in F-35 component manufacturing, the Gripen program exposes engineers to full assembly, systems integration, and flight testing. These are transferable skills, not outsourced labor. Out on the Saskatchewan prairie, Moose Jaw's pilot training base is, getting ready to welcome Gripen aircraft. Mayor Fraser sees opportunities that go well beyond defense. "When you control the technology, you can teach it," he explained. The University of Saskatchewan has actually partnered with Saab to launch Gripen maintenance programs, which are attracting students from all over Canada and even from abroad. These graduates will, form a generation of aviation specialists who are no longer dependent on foreign licenses, an asset that really can't be easily priced. In an era where supply chains are kind of unstable and alliances keep shifting, Canada's Gripen decision, it forces a question every NATO member has to face. Does alliance mean cooperation or dependence? When Washington sells technology that's tied to control, and Stockholm sells technology that's tied to ownership, the choice goes way beyond just performance metrics. It becomes a question of sovereignty itself. Canada chose a harder path, not because it was convenient, but because real security can't be rented. It has to be built, owned, and controlled. So, what do you think about this approach? Will other allies actually find the courage to follow Canada's example? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If this analysis was useful, go ahead and like and subscribe so you don't miss future deep dives into the quiet shifts that are, reshaping global power. Every subscription really helps us keep uncovering stories that not a lot of people are talking about. Just to be clear, this video is a hypothetical analytical synthesis of international political, economic, and defense trends, based on publicly available information and speculative scenarios for educational reference. It does not represent verified actions, official policies, or confirmed decisions by any government or organization.